All right, welcome back to the Dirt Road. I'm here with Rick.
And that's Mike Tikanis, Mike.
What's up, brother?
Nah, you don't know how to answer Tikanis?
No.
You say kala.
Okay.
Say kala.
Sakala.
No, say kala.
Say kala.
Oh, you moron. Is this Abbott and Costello? That's Greek. Tikanis means how are you? Kala means like, am I?
Okay, that's right. I knew I recognized it from somewhere. My Greek is definitely not up and strong.
And I dated a Greek chick for a while when I was younger, and I lived in a neighborhood that had a lot of Greeks. I picked up some. One of my favorite words is malaka. You know what that means?
I know the word. I just don't know what it means.
Basically, it's like calling somebody a jack-off.
Okay, yeah, that's right. I've heard that many times. I dated a Greek girl, and her father called me that multiple times.
Yeah, I could see why. Well, you know, speaking of malakas, Mike, we're going over comments today. This video is going to be, this is going to be you, the viewers, commenting to us, and we're going to react to some of your comments. The normal ones, but we're not going to shout out the malakas.
No, we're not going to go with the crazies and the name callers. We have no
like
point.
The malaka, Mike, I don't know if you saw this or not. I didn't even tell you because I wanted to see your reaction on video. Some malaka out there called us hillbillies.
Well, we are on a farm in Brooklyn. So.
Schmuck, it's a green screen. What the fuck is wrong with these people? I grew up in the Bronx and then Queens, and this fucking imbecile, this malaka is calling me a hillbilly.
Some people can't help themselves.
Oh my God, what a dope! But some of the comments out there were really good. Some, like I said, I mean, we're not going to waste our time responding to somebody who.
If you're just being negative to be negative, we're not going to bother with you.
No.
But if you actually have something to say, whether you're on the same side as us or not, or whatever, we're more than happy to have that conversation.
100%.
We're more than happy to discuss it rationally, honestly, respectfully. That's all. That's all we ask. Just that's it.
That's it. Listen, Mike
Simple.
and I disagree with each other on that. I mean,
All the time.
we have a similar worldview.
Yeah.
But, I mean, listen, Mike, the only person I agree with 100% of the time is me.
That's 100% true.
That's it.
That's everybody.
That's it. Even when I change my mind, I tend to agree with me.
That was the campaign, man. Everybody wanted to hear their words coming out of your mouth, you know?
So, they're malakas.
You get used to it, you know? You get used to it.
Call them malakas.
Malakas.
There you go.
See, that,
well, I'll tell you who's not a malaka. Sounds very nice. Judy Ashmore, VM3SK, who she wrote down Dirt Road. Wow. How did you guys come up with that name?
Well, that was actually
my idea.
Mr. Rick.
But Mike approved. We do everything in partnership.
That's right. We talked, we discussed, but it was his idea. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I thought it was a great name for a podcast for us to be able to talk about just about everything.
That's it.
Yeah. You know, and it was really cool. The whole idea was just awesome. So that's how it came to be. So thank you for commenting and asking.
So, Judy, we're just, dirt road, you never know where it's going to lead, right? So that's it. It's not paved. We're raw. We don't have a script.
That's true.
So,
there's no script here.
No script. Our road's not paved, and we go wherever the road takes us. I think kind of our goal, Mike, at least in my mind, like I just want this to be as if somebody's sitting alone in a diner, drinking a cup of coffee, eavesdropping on the conversation going on in the next booth, and we're that conversation.
Yeah. 100%.
Just a
That's
normal,
exactly it. A normal
conversation.
Except we want to bring you into that conversation. We want you to join us in that booth, have a cup of coffee, and let's talk about everything.
Now, stay in your own booth.
Oh, excuse me.
God bless you.
Sorry.
Stay in your own booth.
Stay in your own booth.
Stay in your own booth. I'm not picking up the
You can sit on my side of the booth. It's okay. We'll leave him on his side.
All right. So I did write down, just to remind myself of some of the comments I wanted to bring up and just see what you thought of it, Mike.
Okay.
So by the way, guys, thank you very much. Our latest video is our highest viewed video so far.
Yeah.
The 29 we have.
Exploded over the last 24 hours. It's gone up like dramatically. Hundreds of views in a day.
Yeah. So we shot up to 714 views, and we are now up to 39 subscribers, and we thank each of you. And again, we'd like to have this conversation with you, so please feel free to comment, and we will shout you out if your comment makes sense.
Comment down below. Missed the camera there.
All right. So one person who obviously disagreed, and this is the problem I have with this comment. I will shout the person's name out because it wasn't really disrespectful. It was a little sarcastic, but it's Denise Case 807, I think it says, who I don't know. Denise, did you watch the whole video when we were talking about the moderators? Because I think you might have missed something, but we'll try to clear that up right now. So, Mike, she wrote, hilarious with an exclamation point. Trying to turn fact-checking into bias. Typical MAGA stupidity. Laughing my ass off. So, a little sarcastic, but her point is that fact-checking is not bias. So, Why don't you start off?
Listen, fact checking is absolutely biased the way it's used. It's all about the context and how it's used, right? So anything can be biased if it's utilized in a certain way. And the way it was used during that debate was extremely biased towards one person, and that was the candidate, President Trump. There was no fact checking of Kamala, even though she outright lied multiple times. Both moderators were fact checking everybody, were fact checking rather Trump and not anybody else, including themselves. They actually contradicted their own reporting in their fact checks of Trump. Things they previously reported on as being debunked or not true or whatever the case might be, they actually went against that to fact check Trump. So the bias is clear and obvious in this case. If we're going to move forward as a nation, if we're going to move forward as Americans, the only way that happens is if we both sides put down that immediate knee-jerk reaction to try and dispel whatever the other side's saying and actually listen and have that conversation. Because if you step back from this whole thing and you actually talk about it, you'll find most people agree on about 80% of stuff. On both sides, the normal ones. Now, if you're part of that 8 to 10% of the Democrat Party that's considers yourself a progressive, then you're probably not going to like this conversation because those people tend to be the far left people. They only believe what they believe, and they will not listen to anything or any kind of reason that doesn't fit with their own personal narrative, and that's just the way that is with them.
Okay,
it's the
but
same on the far
Mike,
right.
to be fair to Denise, she's saying the same thing, right? She's saying that. I think more you, because if you watch the video, I argued with Mike that we're not looking at fair because we're just looking at it as anything that said. Well, I think she's kind of saying that we're the fans of a team that's always saying the umpire is calling strikes on us, but not on
that's
them.
true. No, but look, I'll be the first to tell you that that's absolutely true. That whole narrative is absolutely out there. It's been out there since day one. It's been constant, and it's probably a drumbeat that most people don't even hear anymore. But that said, I didn't look at it from the standpoint of do I support this guy, not support this guy. I looked at the standpoint of, okay, what did they do for him versus what did they do for her, right? So if I take it just from that context, not in any kind of political sense, just strictly from the way they approach questions and dealing with him as opposed to questions and dealing with her, there's a very clear disparity between the two. And that's really where I see the bias.
So, Denise, I invite you to watch the whole video because I don't want to relitigate this and everything, but I did disagree with Mike.
He did.
For much of that video, I read back the questions that the moderators asked.
The questions were good.
Well, just let me finish my point, because you did agree with that part.
Yeah.
Denise, there definitely was fact-checking on Trump and not on Kamala. And they both lied, because that's what politicians do. And if it's not a lie, it's a stretching of the truth, or it's an exaggeration, or whatever.
Embellishment.
Where I agree with Mike is that, well, first of all, moderators should not be fact-checking anything. No moderator in a high school debate club would ever do that. You don't do that. It's the job of the other people to catch the other side to catch the mistakes and bring them up. It's Kamala Harris's job to call Trump out on bullshit. Like, it's his job to call her out. I did have a problem with them coming at only him, and it was only twice, that I remember anyway, that they did this. The one I really didn't like was the thing with the dogs. But if you watch the video, Denise, I think, quote me if I'm misquoting myself, remind me, I think I called Trump a whining little dick.
You may have.
Or a whining dick. Something like that.
You said something like that.
For whining about it, because my whole thought was, don't bring up the fucking dogs. That's got nothing to do with it. That's not the reason why we have to close the border. Because a couple of immigrants may or may not have eaten a pet. We have to close the border because it's busting the budgets of cities. And it's causing chaos in very large swaths of America.
And not to mention the amount of criminality coming across that border. Terrorists and criminals.
So that's where I thought Trump screwed up. Don't bring that up unless you... And the other thing is I called Trump out on was when he did get fact-checked, which, again, I don't think the moderator's job is to do that. Unless Trump was saying, David Muir, you reported X, Y, and Z, and then David Muir says, no, I reported something differently. If it's personal, maybe. But that wasn't what that was. But I did call Trump out for that, and especially his response when he said, well, I saw it on TV. So, Denise,
that was awful.
I don't think you were fair in your comment. I don't think it was a bad point, and I defended the moderators for the most part. Mike didn't. We disagreed. We're two intelligent people who could disagree. That's all.
That's so clear bias in there. Like, just in the way, if you look at the way they treated him versus her, if you take away everything else, all the politics, everything else, and look at how they treated one versus the other, there's a clear favoritism to one and a clear, bias towards another.
And I agree in the sense that they fact check only him
Right.
and not her.
Right, and I don't think they should have fact checked anybody. Again,
No.
I agree with absolutely Rick that the whole point of a debate is to fact check each other. The candidates should be fact checking each other. They should be, confident and educated enough about the issues and the policies that they're discussing to be able to fact check the other one and make their points. That's the whole idea of the debate, not to have moderators carry your water for you.
I agree,
But-
for the most part.
But
But-
we appreciate the comment nonetheless.
100%.
We absolutely get where you're coming from. We understand. You're on the other side of things, so you're probably just as sick of, the rhetoric on both sides that's happening. And this is what this is all about. We're tired of rhetoric. We want to get back to actual conversations. So we do. We actually appreciate you watching. We appreciate the conversation. We appreciate you commenting. And please let us know what you think of this video. Let us know.
So our next one that I want to, I'm not mad really, but I'm not going to give this person the benefit of shouting her name out only because of what she said. But it is an interesting topic, and you've used the phrase fanboy politics before.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes to that, but again, please, you know who you are. Just phrase these a little bit differently. So this one wrote in our RFK endorsing Trump video, anyone who supports Traitor Trump or RFK Jr. is not being honest with themselves. This is not conservative. It is a cult. The left are Americans just like the right. And I agree with you, by the way, on that. I think
That's
we all
100% true. Yeah.
But then goes on to say the difference is the right is taking away freedoms for hatred.
No.
We're not going back.
No.
The part that I think, I don't want to focus on that whole hatred thing because that's nonsense. But the part where I think she has a point that's at least worthy of discussion is where she says Trump, RFK, not conservative, more like a cult. Now, that's not as extreme as you said, where you said fanboy politics. But what do you think of that? I mean, is there any truth to this idea that it's kind of cultish, the way the MAGA people are?
I guess I want to say no. Honestly, I want to say no, but I guess like the cult of personality thing, we could probably bring that into play in this whole thing, that whole phrase about it. I mean, he has a very strong following, but I mean, you also have to remember is you have a great deal of people that are feeling very negative effects based on the policies that they've been living under for a long time. So when you have somebody who comes up and says, "Hey, I can fix this," and then goes and does fix it for a few years, for 4 years there, you're gonna generate a lot of love for that person. So I guess I could say the cult of personality, but in the context that she's trying to use it, no.
So I will say that again. I totally agree. I mean, it's not a cult because the reason I find that comment insulting is people in cults are brainwashed.
Well, yeah,
and she's basically saying that I'm brainwashed because
I mean, that's a common talking point, right? If you look at MSNBC, like I watch all different media, all different news channels all the time. I watch Maddo, I watch other things because I want to be aware of what's being said across the spectrum. Because I'm intelligent and I don't have to cry every time I hear a differing viewpoint, But here's the thing: that whole cult thing, that is like one of the most used slurs, if you will, on like leftist media. You know what I mean? That is
But
one
Mike,
of the
to
ones
be
you hear
fair, I've
most often.
heard our side call the other side brainwashed also.
Yeah, no, they call
I
them
haven't heard
cultish.
cult,
They call
but
them.
brainwashed.
I've heard it cult occasionally, but brainwash is a very common term.
So that's why that's why I don't want to shout this person's name out. But if you do want to comment again, please do. But don't question my intelligence. I'm not brainwashed. Neither
of
is Mike.
us is brainwashed.
I'm not in a cult. I do see your point on one thing though, and I've brought this up before. A lot of Trump's policies were really democratic policies in the past, right?
Yeah.
Trump is he's not a conservative. He's
at all.
not right wing.
Not at all.
I don't even think he has a philosophy, which is what I really like about him. Is that I don't think he really has a philosophy that because I find that what was so dangerous about communism, just to use an example, right, is that the end justified the means in their mind, right?
Yeah.
And whatever happens now, whoever has to suffer now, that's just the cost that we have to pay, the price that we have to pay in order to get to this utopian end,
right,
where everybody will be great, right? But it's the same thing with people who are just, who look at capitalism as almost a religious thing, right? Where, all right, because I've heard this said about the civil rights movement, that, the market could have took care of it instead of the government chiming in because, people were growing more and more against the idea of racism, and if stores would have just been, wouldn't have made business because they weren't selling to blacks, then eventually things would have worked out and blah, blah, blah. I don't like that either. Just because something may or may not eventually work out, I don't look at the free market as the hand of God. I mean, it's not,
It's not.
And even though I do believe that in the end, maybe the market will determine things that are right, I don't believe that people should have to suffer along the way. So whenever somebody's engaged in an ideology and just an ardent follower of an ideology, this is why we have wars, right? I mean, these people have to die for a greater cause. That's the whole idea.
Right,
and I don't go for that in
the other's
politics.
cause.
Right. So that's what I really, to this person who's commenting, that's what I like about Trump. Trump is he's not hardline on anything. And that doesn't mean he's wishy-washy. He's just, in my opinion, pragmatic.
Right, he's extremely pragmatic.
Yeah. And
he wants to see, okay, what works? Okay, let's fix it. How do we fix this? Okay, let's fix it.
Right.
He's that kind of guy. Look, he's effective because he wants to be seen as effective, right? So it's going to be he's the kind of person who's going to work himself to death.
Part of it is his ego. Yes.
Right, exactly. Because look, that kind of that narcissistic streak in him makes him have to be successful because he has to have that accolade. So he's going to be successful for that reason. You can be left, you can be right. You can be whatever you want to be. Your views are based upon who you are as a person, how you feel as a person, and that's fine. I don't want to disparage anybody. That's not what this is about. We don't want name calling. We don't want to be, maligning the other side. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're actually trying to have these conversations. So if you want to make those points, that's fine. We'll discuss that like we just did.
So if she would have left out the word cult, I would have shouted her name out because, again, the point's not bad. Yes, they're up. Like you always point out fanboy politics. It's not good. Trump's not the Messiah.
No,
Jesus
absolutely not.
Is the Messiah.
No, Christ is king.
So yeah. So I get her point, but do me a favor, honey. Just phrase that a little bit.
But you know what? I will say this though. I will say this. For either side, looking at the other side, if you consider yourself, a Democrat, or you consider yourself a conservative, or whatever it is. For either side, looking at the other side, it's easy to just say, oh, look, they're in a cult, because how could they possibly believe this? Right? Because you're operating from whatever side it is you're on, you're operating based upon the facts that you have available to you on your side, or whatever it is you're hearing from the people on your side. And you're not really looking to the other side for any kind of information. You're not really trying to balance the information out. You're not really trying to look for that right answer, or what the real answer is, probably more accurate.
Right. She sounds like exactly what she's accusing us of.
No, she's probably just leftist, and she's like, "Oh, you guys on the right are cultists." Okay, but we appreciate the comment nonetheless. We'll be happy to discuss it further if you want to comment on this video and let us know, what your thoughts are. We're happy to talk about it. We're happy to discuss it. We just don't want to. We don't want to empower people to be nasty. That's not what this is about. It's about having a conversation. So by all means, please reach out, talk to us. I mean, during my campaign, I had multiple people that were very far left that would message me on different social media platforms to talk about policy, things like that. And as long as they were respectful, I was respectful, and we talked about it. Even during my campaign, I would make time to do that because I think it's important. And I still think it's important. And I like having those conversations because it's the only way as a country, left, right, or whatever, that we're going to move forward in a proper way and not completely destroy this thing.
Yeah, so please, don't question my intelligence or Mike's intelligence. But
you can question
other
mine.
than that, well, I always do. All right, to another comment. This was from our RFK endorsing Trump. I'm going to shout this guy out because I love his. Do you call it a handle? Or is
I guess it's like a handle.
Okay. So his name is, her name is
Username.
Vintage Sports Card Finds. And I like that because I love vintage baseball cards. I have my own, and hockey cards. I have my own collection. I love it. So, dude, if I knew what DMs were, I'd tell you to DM me and we could talk about, cards and everything. But wouldn't even know where the fuck to start with that. Anyway, so he was commenting on our RFK endorsing Trump video, he or she, and says, I'm going to start you off with a few comments. It is insane to suggest that overturning Roe versus Wade is central policy. I guess he meant like centrist policy. It puts my wife and daughters and soon granddaughters in jeopardy of losing their lives because they committed the sin of becoming pregnant in the wrong zip code. So I'm assuming the point is that with Roe versus Wade being overturned and different states having different policies, that depending on what state
Where
you live in,
you might have a different outcome.
and this person is, I mean, I disagree with this whole narrative of the hanger and, death being caused with back alley abortions. That's not happening. But
No.
the point that he's making, or she is making, and again, love that you collect vintage sports cards. But I think the point that they're making is that it's not right to have a different policy in each state. And that's a legitimate argument, Mike. It's an argument that I agree with, but from the other side. I think if abortion is murder, which I believe it is, then I don't see why murder should be allowed in one state and not the other. This particular viewer has the same belief, but from a different perspective. You know, where they're saying, well, they're looking at it as a quote-unquote right, and why should you have a right to something in one state and not in another? So I have to say I think it's a fair point because I agree, but just from the different perspective. But
It's a great point. Listen, no, it's a great point. So let's start with Roe versus Wade, right? The case itself. Roe versus Wade, the case itself, was a case about privacy rights. It had nothing to do with actual abortion. They did mental gymnastics in the Supreme Court at that time to actually make it about abortion. It took just quite literally that. It was a terrible ruling. It was considered to be a terrible ruling for a long time by jurists across the aisle. Beta Ginsburg herself, felt it was a bad ruling. So, it's not about so much the abortion issue as just having bad law and bad ruling on the record. As far as the zip code thing, listen, we all know that if you live in one place, you can go to another to get it done, and it's not being prosecuted. As much as somebody might virtue signal in some state government somewhere and try and claim they're going to actually go out and prosecute somebody, good luck. Good luck. That would never hold.
And I mentioned on one of the videos that coming from the pro-life perspective, I was wondering if winning Roe versus Wade is actually going to turn out to be kind of losing in the end, because we see now a lot of, not a lot, but there have been a handful of red states that have pretty much loosened their abortion laws by plebiscite, by, what do you call it? Not plebiscite. Well, it's kind of like a plebiscite, but referendum. I'm sorry. That's
a referendum, yeah, okay.
By putting referenda on the ballots for changing their constitution. So even states like Kansas, which is not, a hotbed of liberalism, has pretty much enshrined the right to abortion into their constitution, and there's other states that have that on the ballot now. So it's kind of a weird dynamic. My entire adult life I've been wanting Roe versus Wade overturned, and it seems that what's happened is that, and they exaggerate this whole thing, the pro-abortion movement, because all that's really happened is states where it was next to impossible to get an abortion are now impossible to get an abortion. So it wasn't like there was some huge shift. In places like Alabama, it was almost impossible. North Dakota, it was almost impossible to get an abortion. Now it's basically impossible. So it wasn't that much of a shift. And then what wound up happening is these blue states like New York have loosened their abortion laws to where pretty much there's no restrictions at all. So it is kind of a weird dynamic, Mike, how it's not, and there's more abortions since the Dobbs decision than there were before. So I don't know what to think. I really don't.
I get that, the hollow victory thing that you're talking about. I get it. I think it's still better the way it is with Dobbs. I think Dobbs basically does what it should have done, which should have been done a long time ago. It puts it back in the voters' hands, right? So as much as you don't like the policy, then you've got to change your state government if that's the case. If that's something that you feel that strongly about, then I guess you have to work towards, trying to turn your state blue, or work your state government, or move to a blue state.
I guess. But I do agree with the premise, because again, I'm looking at it from the other point of view. If abortion is taking a life, why should that be allowed in New York but not allowed in Alabama if it's taking a life?
I'm 100% with you on it. I think abortion is murder, but at the end of the day, based upon the way our system is right now, the way things are right now, it's back in the hands of the voters. See, my biggest thing is as far as conservatism.
But why should an atrocity be in the hands of the voters?
I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be. I would not mind seeing it completely banned.
I mean, do we put rape in the hands of the voters? Are they allowed to vote on whether or not rape is allowed? I mean, is
Clinton back on the ballot?
Funny, but seriously,
No. So I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I'm just trying to work within what we have right now.
Well, we have no choice but to do that. But
exactly, and that's why I'm talking about that.
Philosophically, from the viewer, I do get the point.
I get the point, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm on the opposite side of it. I think it should be outlawed completely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that there should be very, very limited cases where this thing actually happens. And, I have a very strong medical background, so if you're going to play the mom's life game with me, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Because that doesn't happen.
Not very often anyway. Those are very, very rare cases.
So,
I'm sorry.
But the whole premise of it is, the whole reason I like the Dobbs decision, what I like most, I should say, about the Dobbs decision is, it's taking the federal government out of one more area of people's lives. And the less federal intrusion in people's lives, the better.
Yeah, but people like the commenter I just shouted out, they look at it the other way. They look at this as the government getting in their lives by telling them that they have to carry a birth to term. Like, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying I believe that.
Right.
But that is their argument. So they're not arguing this from a quote-unquote big government perspective either. Their argument is the government should, their mantra used to be to keep the government out of my bedroom. Right,
Things absolutely.
Like that.
But
so I'm just trying to be fair. I mean,
no, I
I'm
understand,
very clear
and I
where I
understand
stand
the point.
on it.
But again, it puts it back in the voters' hands.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to just keep rehashing the same thing. But I don't think there are certain things that shouldn't be in the hands of voters, in my opinion. But whatever. I mean, it was a good comment, and it sparked a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Listen, we appreciate the comment. I understand where he's coming from. I understand what he's saying, but obviously I disagree for moral reasons, for my own personal moral reasons. I have a different belief system, so obviously.
Me too.
But I appreciate the comment. I appreciate how intelligent it was written, and the point he's making is valid.
So Vintage Sports Cards also made a comment, which I think could spark a good discussion. I can't read the whole thing, but it starts off with Bobby Kennedy Jr. has no real convictions because just before endorsing Trump, he had sought out Kamala Harris for a position in her administration. And how can you endorse a man who shit on you and your family the way Trump did Bobby Kennedy? So that last part, let's leave that out. That's nonsense. But the first part of that Vintage Sports Cards person is a fair point. And what do you think of this, Mike? So he's saying Bobby Kennedy has no real convictions, and it is true. He was prostituting himself out there. I mean, he was offering to back Kamala.
I think I would take the opposite on that. I would say not that he doesn't have any convictions. I would say he has strong convictions because he's seeking any way he can to find a way forward to bring back, a healthy America. I think his conviction is restoring the environment, restoring the integrity of the food system and food supply, and not having it processed in chemical crap that we're all eating and is killing everybody.
That's a really interesting take, Mike. I mean, I got to be honest with you, I never even thought of it that way. Now I have to rethink my position. Just let me make sure I got what you're saying right. You're saying that he does have convictions, and he will go through whichever path he needs to go through to get those accomplished.
Yep, that's exactly what he said.
I think that's fair. I don't know if I agree with it or not because I really haven't had time to think about that, but you certainly gave me something to think about there. And Vintage Sports Card, what do you think about what Mike just said there?
Let us know. Thank you for commenting again. We appreciate the comments, and I get what you're saying. I do. I understand why you would think that, but to me, that's the way I see it. I see a man who is very, very passionate about the things he cares about, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
You have no problem then, because I would say this guy's right, that if Kamala had agreed to whatever Bobby's demands were, he would have endorsed her.
Sure.
And you don't have a problem with that at all?
No, because I think he was trying to get his agenda passed, and I understand it.
I think that's
and I agree with him on his Make America Healthy plan thing, the thing that he wants to do with the Make America Healthy, and even some of his environmental stuff. Not all of it, because he goes really far off the map with that stuff, but some of his environmental stuff, but especially his health stuff, I'm 100% with him on.
Yeah, so am I. And I'm with him on the environmental stuff, too, because Bobby Kennedy is not a crazy environment. Bobby Kennedy wants clean water. He wants clean air. He doesn't want to bust our economy to get there. He's
a big proponent of nuclear, which I like. Yeah. He likes the nuclear, which is the cleanest energy we have.
He's an old-fashioned Teddy Roosevelt type conservationist who will sue companies that are fucking up our planet. I have no problem with that.
No, me neither.
I love that as a matter of fact.
I have no problem with it either. I love the outdoors. I love being outdoors, so I want to see it preserved. I want to see my environment preserved. I don't want to see it poisoned.
Me too.
So I don't have a problem with the man. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's highly intelligent, and I think he'll be highly effective in whatever he does.
Me too. I mean, at first I agreed with Vintage Cards here a little bit. His premise anyway, that it is kind of like political prostitution. But I got to tell you, Mike, you gave me something to think about there. And Vintage Cards, let me know if Mike.
Let us know what you're thinking. Thank you again for the comment. Yeah. We appreciate having this conversation with everybody. Thank you again.
Absolutely. And all right, Mike, so the next one I'm going to read you, and let me know what you think. This was in a video we did a while back we did a whole video on the media and, bias and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And both of us were ripping the media. I think sometimes for different reasons, but we're both pretty much ripping this. We both at least agreed that the state of the media today is just not
absolute crap.
Anywhere near it was when we were growing up.
Yeah, no, you used to have actual journalists. Now you have very, very, very select few.
All right, so here's a comment about that video. One of our viewers wrote, "The media should not be allowed to lie and spread propaganda." What do you think of that?
I agree.
What about the First Amendment, Mike?
So I don't think that any media entity should be allowed to willingly, knowingly lie, or if they are going to willingly, knowingly lie, then it should be, remember back in the day it used to be an editorial, right? When you were getting an opinion piece, it was an editorial. Except now we don't call anything an editorial, but everything's an opinion piece. But
this commenter wrote, "Lie should not be allowed to lie and spread propaganda." So the media is held. There was I don't know a lot of this off the top of my head, but New York Times versus Sullivan, I think that was the case. So one of those cases, the Supreme Court said, you really have to prove malicious intent.
Well, yeah.
In order to do that, in order to sue a newspaper or a media outlet, but the word propaganda can be anything.
Because that's just it. It's a slippery slope. So I mean, it's too broad of a category, right? You're saying, because if you're on the left and say some right-wing newspaper publishes something, you could claim it's propaganda, right? And then now you're attacking that one. Now, if you do it to the left, I don't like the double-edged swords.
And there's tons of propaganda in the media on every issue, on every side.
Well, yeah, because it's depending upon who's writing it, who's leading, their personal biases, everything else. What I would like to see is maybe just a little bit more, of journalists actually holding true to the oath to take as journalists, to their own standard of journalism. Journalism used to be a very respected, profession. It was always very well looked upon. It was very well respected.
Absolutely.
I mean, growing up, I thought journalists were these honest truth tellers, right? These were these different types of detectives. Not much different than what I did.
Well, remember I brought this up in one of our, I think it was that video. In the old days, most journalists just came up from the streets, just regular people. They didn't go to these elite schools and all of that. Right. So they were very in touch with the community and average people and so forth. I just didn't like in there, whenever you start anything in America with "should not be allowed," it bothers me because we have a First Amendment and who's going to make those decisions and who's going to decide who's the arbiter of truth. If they go out and spread an actual lie knowingly about somebody, they can be sued for that. They are liable for that, but they'd have to prove that it was an intentional lie, and I think that's not such a bad standard. This commenter went on to continue, the media, just very broad now, the media is complicit in the assassination attempt on Trump.
100%. There's a lot of media organizations that are. Absolutely. Because they're taking a narrative.
What do you say when you say the media? What are you referring to in this particular case here?
Certain news organizations that I'm not going to name because we don't want to get into that with them. But
we can name. It was just your opinion. In our opinion, I
think a lot of left-leaning news organizations. So
are you talking like cable news channels?
Cable news channels, local news channels, but anything like left-leaning. So my point will make you'll understand when I get my point. So you've had years of them painting Trump as the modern-day Hitler, the next Hitler, dictator on day one. That's Kamala's own quote. She said he'll be a dictator on day one, right? When you take that kind of verbiage and you put it out into the ether and you're sending it out and you're sending it out and you're sending it out, you have all these vast numbers of people out there that have all kinds of mental illness listening to this and becoming more and more radicalized, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting angry because look at the divide right now. The partisan divide is strong. We all know that.
Yes.
We and you are here trying to kind of bridge that gap. But when you have people who have a responsibility to report news or to kind of bring out that information, and all they're doing is telling you this person is the next modern day Hitler. He's Hitler. He's Hitler. He's Hitler. You have to own that. You have to take part of that responsibility. When someone takes a shot at the guy, you helped radicalize that guy. They had a part in radicalizing.
Listen,
it'd be no different if we were saying, if all the media was saying that, Biden was the next modern day Hitler and someone took a shot at him. I'd be just as pissed.
I mean, yes, but people took shots at John F. Kennedy and hit him. People took shots at Gerald Ford. People took shots at Reagan. People took shots at James
Garfield. The crazies are always going to do the crazy stuff.
People took shots at William McKinley. People took a shot at Teddy Roosevelt. People took a shot at FDR when he was president-elect. I don't know. I do see the connection, obviously. I do think the media is very some in the media. I can't say the media because that's just too
broad. No, there's certain organizations
some
that are
in the
very,
media
very vehemently
are certainly irresponsible and are perpetuating this. But again, I think I don't see it so much as bias as I do capitalism. Mike, this is what sells.
No, I understand that.
This is what sells.
Listen, I understand it. Listen, I get it. I get what sells, but at the same time, I think there's a responsibility to kind of balance that with some reason.
I agree. Where I disagree with that commenter, who you happen to be married to, by the way, where I disagree with that commenter is when she said they shouldn't be allowed. That's
because you're crossing too many bridges there. Yeah, you're starting to kind of infringe upon the rights of people and stuff. I don't like that either.
Yeah, so my sister-in-law out there, I have a little bit of an issue with the way you phrase that, but they're 100% irresponsible. I mean, at minimum.
And I think they have to own part of the fact that these things are happening because they're enabling or empowering it in some sense.
I want to give this person a shout out, but I know you agree with him and everything, so it's just going to be a shout out. Peter Stanton, 27, wrote with. Pete, kind of funny the way he phrased it, so I like it. Says, gentlemen, with the exception of this is the best Joe Biden, the laptop isn't real, Russia collusion, WMDs, hands up, don't shoot, George Floyd was murdered, John Kerry was a war hero, I didn't inhale, a vast right-wing conspiracy, and if you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID, the media doesn't lie.
Compete. All right, so
do we need to discuss that? That was just
I got two things to say about that. First of all, Pete,
is that Pete from the radio show?
Yeah, Pete, we love you. If you guys are catching this podcast, Saturday nights at 10, Liberty News Network, 7.5 Radio. Pete, Walt,
shameless plug.
Great show. You guys will love it. We go live Saturday nights. Trust me, you will not regret listening in. Pete's amazing. So is Walt.
Pete, that was a very funny comment.
It was
I
great.
Loved it. Not malicious at all. Just funny.
Just great.
Just
funny. And listen, for all you out there, we're interested. Okay. We're going to get Pete on the podcast at some point. The only prerequisite is he has to wear his bedazzled man thong. All right, that's what he's got to wear on there. Okay, so
all right,
Pete, if you're listening, that's the rule for you, buddy.
Let's give one more. Somebody we definitely don't know and have never met. A commenter named Bill Garcia 8460. So, Mr. Garcia, this was from our debate prediction video.
Okay.
We were kind of like talking about what each side should do and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And I had brought up that I just found it kind of childish that Trump put out on Truth Social that he doesn't want her to be on a step. You remember, on a box or whatever.
Oh, you want to be up on the same level.
And I said, come on, why do you need to worry about whether you're towering over a woman or not? I still think that was childish, Mr. Garcia. But Mr. Garcia, let's read your point out loud. He definitely disagreed with me, and let's see what you think about what he said. He said, I think the point about not allowing a step for Kamala is to portray the person as they are. No phoniness about anything. I don't think it has anything to do with towering over a woman. It started way back when with Bloomberg. Let everyone see the real you, nothing more, in my opinion. Looking good, guys. So, Mr. Garcia, Mike, what do you think of Mr. Garcia's point there?
It's a valid point.
I agree.
It's a valid point. I mean, look, I never thought of it that way. I never did. But that's a very valid point. I always ever kind of thought of it as like even the playing field or something, I guess. But, that's a very valid point.
Yeah,
he's got a great point.
So it was kind of like the inverse of mine, where I was saying, why is it so important to Trump to tower over it? And he's kind of saying, well, why would it be important for her to be something she's not? If she's 5'4" and he's 6'3", let them be what they are.
5'4" and 6'3",
and that's it. And it's a valid point, Mr. Garcia, who we've never met before in our life. But I definitely don't want to tick him off because I think we're going there for Easter.
That's right, we're going there for Easter. Definitely never met him, though.
Never met him. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for commenting, and our latest videos have really been getting a lot of views, and we're really happy, and neither one of us is doing this with any illusions of being millionaires or the next Joe Rogan. We're just having fun. We're hoping you're having fun listening to us.
We're coming for your spot, Joe Rogan. That's it. You're going down, buddy.
You're going down, my man, and we'll kick his ass, too. I don't know about that.
We're going to have people in my basement here.
That's a tough dude. But listen, like I said at the beginning, it was Judy Ashmore asked why we named it the Dirt Road. We're just traveling where we're traveling. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. And listen, like you just saw, if you're respectful, even if you make a point we disagree with, we're
still going to discuss it because that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And the reason why I don't do it on the phone and just type it in is because I just don't think you can really make sense, just typing a couple of paragraphs. So I know they have no choice because, they're not on here. So just continue to comment and, stop with we're in a cult and don't question my intelligence. But
Rick's a very, very, very intelligent guy. Okay? He's just anybody who's listening. He's extremely intelligent. He understands these policies both from a historical perspective as well as his own personal beliefs. So, there's no need for anyone to attack. We're not going to attack you personally.
No.
Please don't attack us personally. No. And let's just have this conversation. This whole thing is about having that conversation, bridging that gap, and realizing that we're all Americans and we have to find a way forward without all this craziness.
One of the commenters wrote that, right? That left or right, we are Americans.
We're Americans.
And we're entitled. So
That's
I
right.
believe what I believe. Mike believes what he believes. Again, we're mostly on the same page, but we have every right to try to shape society as we want it to be, as others have. But it does seem that our side is always called Nazis for trying to do that, or fascists.
Well, there's a lot of name calling because it's effective, right? Because it's an easy way to get people to kind of comply.
All we want is to create a world that we're happy with our kids living in, and I understand the other side feels the same way.
Yeah, we want a moral, just world, but I think the other side does too. I think they just see it.
They see it differently. And I'm not going to call them brainwashed or stupid, but
No.
Obviously I disagree. Anyway, Mike, we're on here for quite a long time here with the comments. Thank you all.
We'll come back to the comments again at some point. We will do another episode just like this with your comments. So please get down in that comment section. Let us know what you think. Give us any points you want to make.
Maybe we'll do like one a week or once every other week or something.
Yeah, we'll do them as often as those comments are in there. We'll definitely jump back on and we'll do it again.
Yeah, okay? So spark the conversation.
This is a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. And this is exactly what we want. This kind of conversation. This kind of all of us just getting together to discuss this thing and move this thing forward in the right way. So,
always a pleasure, homie.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll see you next time on
Good
the
night,
Dare
folks.
Road.
Thank you again.
Subscribe.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Let's get in this conversation.
See you next time.